Hello, and thank you for checking us out live on the Hospitality Strategy Lab. I'm here with Barbara Castiglia. She's the managing editor of modernrestaurantmanagement.com. Barbara, welcome to the show. Thank you for coming on.
Hey, thank you for inviting me. Always happy to talk restaurants.
Well, I got a million questions for you. So I read this article that you wrote, or that your magazine wrote, called Future Proofing Restaurants: What to Expect in 2026." Just off the top of your head, what is keeping your readers up at night?
Well, obviously, labor will is continually a main issue that restaurants are going to be dealing with, that have dealt with. And, it's changed, particularly hitting after the pandemic. Um, the constraints on labor, wages, tips, there's so many different factors within labor that are probably the things that keep people the most up at night, but it's a continual problem. So they kind of know they have to deal with this. And that's probably the main thing. Costs, as everybody knows, everybody, goes to the grocery store, goes out to a restaurant, that everything is costing more. So if it's costing anybody more at the grocery store, it's costing restaurants more. And they look at higher meat prices, coffee prices, all of those things that are kind of standards for the restaurant. And how do you meet people where they are? And I think probably the main thing that is keeping people up now is what do guests want? What do they want? They want an experience, and they're saying repeatedly, we want to go to a restaurant and we want to have an experience, but they also want value. So it's kind of those things. How do you pair the two, and how do you balance that? And AI is a big thing in everybody's mind about how to use AI correctly, what it can do, how it can help restaurants and not be a burden to them. There are so many issues heading into 2026 that are literally on a restaurant operator's plate, be it an independent restaurant owner or a franchise operator, that looking to technology even more as a way to be more efficient and to use data, which I think that's something that fascinates me, is how to take all of that information that you receive from the guest journey, and how do you make it better for that guest? That is something that, how to better do those things.
What information would you look for, and how would you use it once you got it?
It really depends on the individual restaurant. I always go back to an example of, if you have specials and you see, the salmon special is just not doing it. Now, why isn't it working? Then you have to, recalibrate. Do you go, well, is it something about the recipe? Do people just not want salmon? Is it the price point? And those are the things where you can kind of figure out what's working. Is it just not working for your area? Kind of recalibrate. And I love how, thinking these things kind of even helps with like food waste issues and other big sustainability issues, which are part of the day-to-day restaurant, but also part of the big picture of living in the world and future proofing in a way.
Are you seeing any particular style of restaurant service that's more resilient than another style?
Well, I mean, it's interesting how now you're seeing a big resurgence at places like Applebee's and Chili's, where people are going for the value. They're walking in that door and they're, what is it, 2 for $25? It used to be 2 for $20, but I think it's like 2 for $25. And they're going in there and they're getting, a drink, probably because they can afford to get the drink, and they're looking at the bill and they're saying, okay, I got a couple of burgers and some drinks and my kids were happy. So those are the ones that are having the big resurgence, which had been hurting previously, but they're kind of meeting people where they are, particularly when getting a value and feeling that they get a value for their money, as opposed to, a fine dining restaurant. It really has to perform well across the board, meeting people at service and being exceptional and providing a meal that people are just going to be wowed by. The economics are really hard for everybody right now, but I think it's that they're finding that sweet spot in those, not fast casual, but where they're casual sit down, and and people are, I see the lines, I see the crowded parking lots. And it was an interesting thing to see over the past few years how there had been nobody in some of these restaurants and now people are there. and it's just where where they're placed to be. I mean, I don't know how long that trend will continue. I do think, we've been seeing this value seeking trend coming out of the pandemic, and more so.
What are your thoughts on menu dynamics and creating a menu that actually meets the psychology of the new consumer? And I call them the new consumer because they're now deciding whether or not they're going to go out to eat or if they're going to buy a couple of days worth of groceries. And that is the parity there.
That is.
But I have one client, that just sells burritos. They have less than 10 menu items and they're just crushing it because they go extremely deep on one thing. They do one thing exceptionally well versus having 10 things and overloading people with the burden of choice. Are you seeing
Well,
anything like that?
I think it really depends on the restaurant. I mean, they always go back to the example of like Cheesecake Factory, which has this menu, which is like a book, and even they've pared it down. But I like the example that you gave about, you doing something and you're doing it well, because people look online now. So they know your welcome is online now. It's not necessarily people walking in the neighborhood and looking at your menu in the restaurant window. They're finding you online. A lot of cases, people are looking online and they're already deciding what they want before they even get there. So you kind of have to whet their appetite at that. Having an easy navigatable menu that you can look online and see what you have and make it something that people want. It's definitely easier as an execution for your restaurant. Having something like burritos, what supplies you're going to need, you know what you're going to do, in training what you're going to have your chefs prepare. When you have such a fine-tuned menu, if you have servers, they can really understand the menu. They can really try everything and get a depth of knowledge that they can then relate and have a better hospitality experience to your guests too. I think, to me, that's always a smarter play than kind of being a generalist where you kind of have a little bit of everything. I'm in New Jersey and we have a big diner culture. And so, even the diners have been paring down their menus, and not having, like this large expanse where you could go to a diner and you could get, a ham steak, or you could get eggs, and you could get this. They're even kind of fine tuning, because I think it's the better economic play to know your menu and know what you do well. And I think it also helps with building that loyalty. The example you gave, if I went there and I had a great burrito, the next time I want a burrito, I'm going to go, yeah, I'm going to go to that place that really, really had good ones, as opposed to maybe trying something else that might have a huge menu. So I think it definitely is a smarter play for people moving forward.
How do you feel people, what do you think is the process for people deciding on a new place to go?
So many things. I think word of mouth is still important, but I think the word of mouth is bigger because it is online. So it's not just you and me talking about a restaurant. It's Facebook and seeing, oh, there's a new restaurant opening in town, and two of my friends mentioned it on Facebook. And you kind of put that little check mark in your head. Okay, I'm going to go there. So I think it's definitely that sort of thing. I think in a lot of cases, it's still people will search via restaurants near me serving a certain kind of food. If they want pizza, if they want Mexican food, Chinese food. And I do think they're willing to give people a chance once. And if the experience just doesn't line up for them, they're not going to go back there again. But everything really starts online. Then it goes out from there. And it's a matter of you do well on that first experience, and then you'll have them coming back. And I do think there are people who are starting out finding things via delivery, ordering takeout, and then go into the restaurant after. Maybe they think they're saving money that way, or a time convenience factor. So a restaurant has to kind of have that two, multiple channel of way to reach people. You want to reach people who are going to want takeout and delivery, and you want to have your dine in. It just is the way things are now.
All right. So in this article, and I'll link to this in the podcast notes, that about what to expect in 2026. There's some kind of an ominous subtext. What do you think? What should people be most worried about, and what can they get? What can they do right now to get ahead of that? What you think is coming in 2026?
Well, I mean, the really undeterminable thing now is pricing and how much things are going to cost. We've seen it with coffee prices and meat and also, there might be shortages of certain things. So that's the thing where not just that article, but in a lot of articles where telling restaurant operators to secure your vendors, to, if you have good contracts with people and things in place, make sure you have those relationships and build those relationships, because when you know kind of what control your costs, then you're not going to have to raise menu prices over and over again. You might, obviously most restaurants have had to raise their menu. It's just something they've had to do out of necessity. And I think people are getting used to it. It's tough to go into a restaurant that, may have been a $35 to $50 two-person walking in and out the door, and it being $75 to $80 now without drinks. But I think that people are going to get used to that. But there are also some people who are just not going to be dining out as frequently um, as they are. For the franchise sides, limited time offers, LTOs, are really getting creative on those to get people in the door and to get people excited about things. And, making them, McDonald's brought back their Monopoly game. So, which is something they had big success
It's
with
always
and
been a
all of
hit.
that.
Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a sweepstakes.
Yeah. So things like that are also the nostalgia trend, comfort. So anything you can hit that still speaks to your authenticity. So once you go away from being your brand and you try to be somebody else, you're automatically going to lose. You really have to kind of understand what your mission is and what you do, like the burrito place you mentioned, what you do well, and then build from there. And, you want to appeal to multiple generations. A lot of times you get things from people and we want to appeal to Generation X. We want to appeal to, and there's always a new generation coming up, but you kind of want to have a broad appeal and have things that could kind of be for everybody, because everybody has the dollars to go out and pay
It's
for things.
interesting that you mentioned that, because this is something that we talked about with another guest of mine, Daniel Burstein. He was talking about finding your tribe and like serving your tribe and just being like, this is the identity of the person that I am, which is also going to be the identity of the person that works with me in my restaurant as my staff. And then we serve the similar person. And so that person, all you really need is like 1,000 of those people in your market. And that's probably going to be enough to sustain your restaurant. Maybe not even that many.
Yeah. And I think, if anytime you're trying to be somebody else, it's not going to work. If you're, I'm trying to think of in terms of restaurant terms, if you want to do a fine dining restaurant, but you're really, into potatoes and doing, some kind of
They
funky,
got
cool
potatoes in
potato
fine
thing.
dining.
No, I mean, like, something like a baked potato bar or
Right.
something,
Uh,
something
French
kind of
fries,
cool
yeah.
and funky. You want something that speaks to who you are, and sometimes that's hard to identify because, you're dealing with your true self, and it's easier to put on a face or something. But if you put that out there, you're gonna find your tribe. You're gonna realize, hey, there are people who like what I like and want to do what I do. But when you move that, over to try to appeal to too many different people, then it's just going to become very wishy-washy, and then you have no identity. And then it'll be like, well, what's this place? They have this, they have this, they have this. But if you will find your people and your people will find you. That's kind of the thing, the advantage that we do have now using social media, and is you have that outreach where people will travel to a restaurant that they think that they're going to get a good experience at. And that's different than years and years ago, where it was definitely more constrained to your local. But never count out the local play. Never stop marketing locally. Never start being part of that community. If you're in a community that has schools, helping out with the schools and doing things, fundraisers and all that, because then you're kind of instilling loyalty into other generations who are going to want to come back and build. A lot of everything to me is about building relationships. And little ways and little things that you can do that you're planting those seeds, and then they'll grow somewhere in the future.
Hmm. It's an interesting. You remind me of this part of I think it was *Sapiens* by Yuval Harari, where he was talking about how early civilizations that we were only able to the tribes only grew up to be around 150 people before they married off or died or whatever. But we can only personally, individually, actually cultivate and curate about 150 relationships. All right, I'm going to put you on the spot here real quick.
Go ahead.
Without the help of CRM, which you can have a free trial at jlittrell.com. So I'm going to put you on the spot here. Let's say that you're a $3 million independent owner, like sub $3 million in a year, and you have 1 hour to market your business. What do you do?
Well, definitely
1 hour a week.
1 hour a week. Okay. Well,
how do you spend that hour a week marketing your business?
Well, right now, I mean, video is a great play. If you have things that you can visualize, have really great photos of your food, and show. I know a lot of people have had success showing your staff, showing who you are, and relating that out. I would definitely tap a little bit into AI in terms of organization, in terms of keywords, things that you can kind of turn your brain off, but in terms of creativity, I think that's what you gotta have to have on your own. I don't think AI is going to give you that same authenticity. It's not going to know you. As I always say, I get a lot of articles in, and I could tell they've been written solely by AI, and I can, because it doesn't really recognize like the human frailties and the human way we talk, we make mistakes, we do things. It's kind of very static and all of that. And what human beings respond to is the human element. And if any industry is about being a human, and it's hospitality, you want people to feel welcomed. It's about how you make them feel overall. So if it's something that's kind of blank and all, but if it for an hour, I mean, I would spend a campaign on that kind of goes through all of your social media. Facebook is a community oriented one. So Facebook, TikTok, the basics, and definitely video and visually focused.
All right. I just had a thought here while you were saying that. I've got this, I've been kind of telling my clients for a couple of years, and I'm just like, it's the 3 Ps: people, place, product, right? Talk about the people, talk about the place, and product. And if I had 60 minutes a week, that's it, which is, I'm guessing like if you're under $3 million, you've got a plunger in one hand at all times. And so like if you had 60 minutes a week, I would distribute those 60 minutes and document something that's happening in the restaurant once a day for 7 minutes. Be like, this is what's going on here, and then just send it out to all the different platforms. Just show people what's going on. Like, it's like you don't have to like have this. You don't need an agency for this. You just need a cell phone. Interesting. So what kind of stuff are you reading? What are your best performing articles? What are some of the stuff that people are really interested in reading right now?
Right now, obviously planning for the holidays. What can you kind of expect? Holiday hiring, using AI, how to effectively using AI for marketing, and more so, I think, using AI on the back end. So on the not people facing aspect. So and this more seamlessness use of AI, so that it can kind of be tapped into, so that then you can spend money on the labor that will be the front facing. Interesting, a lot about fraud and cybersecurity is being from June on, and securing data.
What's the problem? I haven't heard anything about this. What's the problem?
Well, I mean, it's big full. I mean, there's different things going on with the fraud on the delivery apps, where I don't want to talk too much about the actual issue, because it's one of those things, if you say what it is, then it gives people the idea of how to do things.
Mm-hmm.
Bad actors, but different kinds of ways to combat fraud, things that are particularly hitting independent restaurants who don't have the same capabilities to recover. And securing.
Who's the typical mark? Is it the person that picks up the phone, or is it?
Well, I think that no, it can be that. I mean, but I think they think that the mark is going to be DoorDash is just going to pay for this, or but it's really the restaurant. The money's coming out of the restaurant. They think that there's no, that they're getting away with something, but there is an actual victim there. And also websites that have been held hostage or Facebook pages that have been held hostage. And, if you're just a restaurant owner and you're doing all this on your own, and then somebody takes over something that is your vehicle for informing people about your restaurant, and they're using it for nefarious purposes, your trust and loyalty is automatically going to go down with people.
Can I
And
just go on a
sure,
little rant here real quick?
okay, go right ahead.
So I've got a client in South Africa, and they're the victim of a very sophisticated crime where they're getting mediocre reviews, like not bad reviews, but like middle, like 3 and 4 star reviews from people who have obviously never been there. And then the comment is 5-star service, but then they'll leave 3 stars. Like that was this morning, and it's a very sophisticated crime. And I just think it's the rant is that like Google is all of our silent business partner, and they do not care. They just don't care. If somebody's leaving fake reviews on your website, then there's really not a whole lot you can do. You can dispute the review, but it's this automated process, and then you have to escalate it over time. Meanwhile, the damage is done,
Right.
and it's just totally
And really, I mean, we've written numerous articles about review management and how to respond to reviews, and then how to kind of combat that, where you're getting better reviews, asking people for review, not paying them for reviews, but you want genuine, honest reviews that will kind of, take those down. It's really hard. The more sophisticated that these things get, it's harder to deal with those kind of things, and particularly if you don't have the wherewithal, you're not hiring someone to handle all of these things for you, and it feels like you're being victimized. Someone's attacking you, and you may not even know why. I mean, I've gotten weird articles from people that they want us to post that aren't real articles, and you wonder what the whole people's purposes are of doing these things, that they hire people to do things, to get backlinks, to get things, and they don't know that people aren't doing them the right way because they're paying a service. So they may not be aware that things are not being handled the right way. But I mean, what you're talking about seems like there's some kind of bot thing involved where somebody's going in there and somebody is purposely
it's
going after them, almost like it's a mystery, that you need a Columbo to go solve.
the weird part is that they're not asking for anything. So I was a marketing director for a small hospitality group called Overthrow Hospitality here in New York, and this was like a couple of years ago, and we were being held hostage. They would leave us negative reviews and say, give us a gift card for $75, and like $75, like in not a restaurant gift card, but like a cash gift card that they could actually use on Amazon or something and get some tangible goods. And they were holding us hostage, and some people paid them, and it was a very efficient crime because we couldn't find them, and Google wasn't going to help us out at all, and they can change the review to a positive review anytime. What they don't like, I don't know why they don't go after like bankers and people who have money. It's like, come on, guys. Why are you going after restaurant owners? Like
Well, I think
they're the least paid
they've
employees in half the restaurants.
yeah, but I think they tapped into a vulnerability. You know, a restaurant wants to have good reviews, and people do look at reviews. People do look at how reviews are handled. All the times I'll see a review, see a bad review, and I look to see how the owner responded. And that actually tells me more about whether or not I want to go to the restaurant than the bad review. Because if I don't like how they handled it, I'm like, well, you're really not very hospitable if you're not, if you're acknowledging something that may be a way you can improve and something that you can learn about, then, may not be the place I want to go to. It's so many different things out there for restaurant owners now. You're like, why do they even go into it? And I think so many of them really just have that love of hospitality. As writing an article now, we refer to the hospitality gene, where you have people who they just love the business and they really can't imagine their life doing anything else, despite how hard it is, the hours, all the things that go into it, that there is just a love of wanting to take care of people and wanting to feed people. And it's a business, but it's a tough business. And there are so many things that make it tougher and tougher. But I just did an article the other day about a survey that showed all of these terrible things, that the restaurant dealing with tariffs and prices and menu prices and all these things. But like a high percentage, like it was like 71% of people, restaurant operators said they're positive about what's coming up in the next year. So I think that that's the natural resilience that's built into the industry, and and moving forward despite whatever hurdles are thrown at people, that they still want to be here and still want to operate. And it's not, I mean, it is about money, but it's not really about, it's not a whole money making thing like a banker. So they they probably can tap into that there are people who care, and that's why they can kind of victimize people. It's a shame. It's a shame that, if all these people who were doing these terrible things really put their minds to it, they could create amazing things to solve the world's problems, but they wind up doing these terrible things instead.
All right. Well, last question. Who is that? Tell me about your reader and who would get the most out of modernrestaurantmanagement.com.
Okay, so our reader is 80% on the US based, and then pockets in hospitality areas throughout the world. So you have the UK, Canada, Australia. We cover everything, anything that goes into operating a restaurant. I try to get a different variety of things: staffing, floors, anything, design, any kind of interesting thing that gets into how you can perform better. So anybody who wants information on how to run a restaurant and how to run it more efficiently, and on information to let you make better decisions, that's who we kind of say who the audience is. And it's definitely B2B. It's not a consumer oriented publication, because I always kind of put my hat on as if I was a restaurant operator. What information about this do I need to know? What do I take away from this? What do I need to know? Why should this be on my radar? I'm working on something now about the AI marketing paradox for next week, where it'll be about how to use AI. But if it's not going to let you be authentic, what do you do? Is there any point?
Can I be? I might be a good source for you for that. I'm just saying, just throwing that out there.
Oh, we'll do another article because it's a continual topic.
Okay.
And I'm also doing something on a law that's supposed to be signed soon in California about allergens and things being put on menus, and how this is implemented and what it means for the industry. And this is something that's happening in California. But as you know, things happen in other states, big states, California, New York, they tend to trickle over. And what restaurant operators need to know about this, to meet their customers who are facing allergy issues. It's a serious, serious issue. So, we have just a big mix of a lot of different things. I have something tomorrow on a restaurant company that, they have a whole system in place of hospitality, that starts from, when you walk in the door, it's to the whole thing, and it's steps that they put in place that they make all of their staff members adhere to while being hospitable, and how they kind of put all of that in place. So those are the kind of things, that stories, looking for good restaurant stories, and that other people can kind of take away from and say, hey, that actually works. Maybe that's something I can implement. Ways of cost cutting and all that. Right now we're heading into the end of the year, where we always do outlook pieces with people on, where we get into a lot of experts and thought leaders on what they think will be the issues that will impact their industry coming into 2026. So I was just starting looking at 2025, what people said, going into this year, and a lot of it was, things that we've seen come to pass. Definitely, more focus on AI and costs and value and all. And it'll be interesting to see what people put their thinking caps on, and what they say next year is going to be, and what different things may come up. It's really a wide berth. We try to be, we definitely try to be authentic, but it is that small people. It's definitely people who are a restaurant owner operator, or thinking about being a restaurant owner operator, and wanting to get an idea of all of the many different things that are involved. I went into this thinking, it's B2B. I've written about a lot of different things. I've covered many, many different things. And I'm like, oh, it's going to be this really refined niche. It's not going to be, it's going to be B2B restaurants. And it really is very interesting for me. I constantly am in, been doing it for 10 years, but I'm always excited about what the next story is going to be, who I'm going to be talking to, what story, is out there. So it's constantly changing and evolving, which as an industry, it's fascinating, to kind of see all of that. So take a look, check us out. We publish at least one story every weekday, and try to have a nice variety, a nice library where people could research different topics if they're interested in. And always people can reach out to me and say, hey, we have a great story. We don't do products, like we don't recommend this POS system or this particular product, but we do have a positive take on the industry, I'd say. Like we're pro people succeeding in the industry. During the pandemic, we tried not to focus on all the restaurants that were closing. We tried to be very helpful and providing information for people to come to us so that they could learn about the PPP loans and all of these things that were important to the vitality of the industry at the time. So that's kind of what we look for as a resource to learn more about the industry that you're in and help you make better decisions for your own business.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Barbara. Barbara
You're
Castiglia
welcome.
from the executive editor of modernrestaurantmanagement.com. Barbara, thank you so much for jumping on. Is there anything else that you'd leave us with?
No.
All right.
Okay.
All right, y'all. Thank you so much for checking out the Hospitality Strategy Lab. This has been Jason Littrell. For more information and to join the conversation, head to lab.jlittrell.com or hospitalitystrategylab.com. And a new resource that we're developing is workshop.jlittrell.com, which is all the stuff that all the projects that I'm building and all the stuff like that. So thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next time. And that's it.